Hello everyone, I am Dr. Daniel Murphy, chiropractor, here in my office in Auburn, California. On this short educational video, we will discuss aspartame. All of us are familiar that aspartame is an artificial sweetener that was first approved for consumption in the U.S. 1981. Consequently, the approval process was relatively short. Interestingly, they now have studies that have been following regular consumers of aspartame for 22 years. The top nutrition journal in the world, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, recently published a study following men and women who are consuming aspartame in consumer products for 22 years, specifically, primarily, aspartame consumption through soda consumption. The study is huge. It involved 47,810 men, 77,218 women, following once again for 22 years. The reason this is a concern of health researchers is because aspartame is now found in 600 consumer products. So the potential for the exposure to aspartame is quite big. What does long-term exposure to aspartame really do to human health and to human physiology? Well, looking at that issue, first thing to understand is that aspartame is made up of three separate molecules. The first molecule is called aspartic acid or aspartate. Aspartate or aspartic acid is an amino acid, no problem. The second ingredient is phenylalanine. Phenylalanine, like aspartic acid, is also an amino acid. The third ingredient, though, that's the one that, according to the article just out of the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, this is the problem: methanol. Methanol is alcohol, but it's not the type of alcohol that we find in a glass of wine. That would be ethanol. Methanol is a toxic alcohol. So phenylalanine has in it a toxic alcohol. Well, looking at this study from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, what they point out is that methanol is broken down by an enzyme. It's called alcohol dehydrogenase. It's broken down into formaldehyde. Now, formaldehyde is a proven, egregious human carcinogen. We should never be exposed to formaldehyde. We're mostly familiar with formaldehyde as an embalming fluid. We saw this year, 2015, the company Lumber Liquidators had a lot of problems because they were selling flooring that was infused with formaldehyde. So you have people that are walking and crawling around on floors that have formaldehyde. It is an egregious and serious human carcinogen, yet it is only one enzyme away from methanol, one of the three ingredients that is found in aspartame. When you look at the study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, the cancers that they found linked to this formaldehyde are, one, leukemia. The risk of leukemia in men went up by 56% for the users versus the non-users. The second is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I've abbreviated NHL. Non-Hodgkin's lymphomas, the risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma went up 64% in the study. But the one that is really quite scary, both of those are scary, this is more scary, is multiple myeloma. The incidence of multiple myeloma in people that are consuming aspartame on a regular basis over a 22-year period of time, the risk of multiple myeloma went up 236%. Completely unacceptable. Again, the approval process for this product was quite short. Now they're having long-term studies coming in that are truly suggesting that the approval be reevaluated because it appears that these things are serious carcinogens. They also noted that there is a difference in the risk of these cancers in men versus women. And the reason is because men have more activity of the enzyme that converts methanol into formaldehyde. Because of that, men have an increased risk as compared to women. Women aren't off the hook. They still have increased risk, but the risk is greater in men. There is another issue with aspartame that should be explored, that's explored in many, many references that I will briefly review at the end of this video. They are, aspartame is broken down into aspartic acid, and aspartic acid will attach to a receptor on the nerves of our brain. The name of the receptor is NMDA receptor. NMDA stands for N-methyl-D aspartate. So aspartate, or aspartic acid, attaches to the aspartate receptor. As soon as that happens, it increases the productions of free radicals. As you increase the productions of free radicals, you make sick brain neurons. Sick brain neurons will eventually go to dead brain neurons, and then you get increased risk of neurodegenerative diseases. Neurodegenerative diseases would include things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and we just saw the Will Smith football movie came out this week, chronic traumatic encephalopathies. All of these guys are linked to this same cascade. Lastly, what I put onto the board here is I put in glutamate or glutamic acid. They would be synonyms. Glutamate should also be talked about in the same paragraph with aspartic acid, because both aspartic acid and glutamate attach to the same NMDA receptor. The N-methyl-D-aspartate receptor, glutamate, will also attach to the aspartate receptor. Consequently, glutamate will also drive the productions of sick brain neurons and neurodegenerative disorders. So just sort of understanding that that's why they're kind of teamed up. Also, in 2001, there was a great article by a guy named Jerry D. Smith published in the Annals of Pharmacotherapy, where he took a small group of people with chronic pain syndrome, hurting for decades, taking handfuls of drugs, not getting any benefit at all, and they got 100%, everyone in the study, chronic pain syndromes, 100% of people got completely better, completely free of pain by eliminating everything in their diet that had aspartic acid, free aspartic acid, and free glutamic acid. You can still eat protein, because when you eat protein, you're going to get some of these things. But because both glutamate and aspartate are taste enhancers, they have tended to put them in the foods, because when you put them in the foods, sales go up because foods taste better. As sales go up, food companies make more money. They like this. The problem is these guys are also proven to cause chronic pain sensitization. By the way, in that study by Jerry D. Smith in the Annals of Pharmacotherapy, they make a very big point that it truly takes 4 months to clean up your diet from this and this before you get completely pain-free. And then once you're pain-free, if you add either one of those back in, then you tend to have a spike in pain sensitization once again. My favorite references on these issues start with Dr. Russell Blaylock's book, Excitotoxins, A Taste That Kills. Blaylock is a retired neurosurgeon out of Jackson, Mississippi. I have had dinner with him. I think he's the smartest physician that I know. This book here, Excitotoxins, the entire book goes over aspartic acid and glutamate. He calls them excitotoxins. This book here, coming out 2 years later in 1999, In Bad Taste, the MSG Symptom Complex by George Schwartz, another physician. Even though the title talks about glutamate, throughout the book he also talks about aspartic acid. This book here, very interesting, coming out the following year in 2000, titled The Crazy Makers by Carol Simon Tachi, subtitled How the Food Industry is Destroying Our Brains and Harming Our Children. A very, very nice book that sums up the literature on glutamic acid and aspartic acid, as well as other things. This book here by Joe Mercola. Mercola is an osteopath. He has Mercola.com, the biggest alternative health webpage on the internet, and the internet's so big, if you're number one in any category, that's really saying something. He wrote this book in 2003, Sweet Deception, Why Splenda, NutraSweet, and the FDA, basically going over again how these products are bad for human consumption. He adds in some of the other ones as well. Take a look at this book. Look at the size of this book. Aspartame Disease, an Ignored Epidemic by physician H.J. Roberts. It's a 2001 copyright, but it's an incredible piece. The science that he reviews here, the references that he goes over, leaves no doubt on the reader's mind that aspartame is in fact a problem. And lastly, we have the book While Science Sleeps by Woodrow Monte. Is a PhD. Again, another book about aspartame and how it kills neurons in the brain, how it causes so many health and physiological problems that all of us should probably avoid these things. All of these books, the authors are trying to sell them to the lay public, to get the lay public to understand them. Yet this information also comes out in professional texts in medical school. This book here, Neurochemical Aspects of Excitotoxicity, is a medical reference text. Excitotoxicity, again, is when the glutamate and the aspartate attach to the NMDA receptor, increase the productions of free radicals that are toxic to the brain. They start to kill them. Sick neurons, dead neurons, increased risk of neurodegenerative disorders. I will read one ending paragraph from the article from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition on aspartame. Quote, aspartame, especially in liquids, quickly breaks down into its three main ingredients: methanol, which is this one, aspartic acid, which is this one, and phenylalanine, which is this one. If stored near or above room temperature, and the formaldehyde metabolized from methanol, is a documented human carcinogen. That's the key point from this article, Top Nutrition Journal. I hope you learned something from this short talk. Thank you for your time.